So we're going into spoilers for the One Punch Man webcomic in this video. It's a few years ahead in the story from where the manga is, so yeah, keep that in mind. But anyway, in the latest webcomic chapter, 155, it's essentially revealed that Metal Knight is like a good guy, more or less. I mean, he's not a great guy, but he's definitely not like a villain, as some people thought. He also reveals that the first time that his weapon data was stolen was several years ago, and that since then there's been multiple traces of internal leaks from the Hero Association. This is referencing how like the robot invasion currently going on has access to that weapon technology and the robots and all that stuff because it was stolen from Metal Knight. And then going further, Metal Knight says like, why did I let them roam free like that? Well, to gather intel and trace it back to the culprit. And then once I pinpointed the mastermind's coordinates, the entire Metal Knight series will storm in and it'll be over. But obviously it wasn't that simple. He still hasn't even come close to doing that yet. But later on in the conversation, Child Emperor says, you said mastermind earlier. Do you know who the culprit is? And Metal Knight says, that man. He's been after my brain since long ago. Now that's funny if you read One Piece because Oda likes to do that as well. Say that man to keep things ambiguous. And One, of course, is doing the same thing here. So begs the question of who is that man? So I originally thought, oh, I guess it's got to be Drive Knight because that's who my, public enemy #1 is for who's stealing all of this data and who's, running the organization. But maybe it's not that simple. I mean, Drive Knight definitely is one of the major villains of this series. He's the mad cyborg and, he is definitely a part of the organization and siphoning data from Metal Knight. But what if he is not like the true leader? And I've mentioned this many times before. I always said that there was definitely a possibility that there is like a grand overlord of the organization that is not necessarily Metal Knight, but he's like the right-hand man. And that brings us to the title of the video and the thumbnail, and it's, what if it was Dr. Kuseno this whole time? Now, I didn't talk about this in my review for chapter 155 because I didn't think about it. It was you guys that mentioned this to me, and when I read that, I was like, whoa, that totally makes sense. Because I always thought Dr. Kuseno died unceremoniously. I think I even say that back in my webcomic chapter 140 review, back when it was released, that there was so much more potential for him and so much more that needed to be revealed about him and so much more exposition that he needed to deliver. Because, still, we don't really know much about Dr. Kuseno. He kind of just exists and then he dies. I mean, the most that we really get out of him, other than when Genos is talking about him to Saitama in season 1, is in chapter 140 of the webcomic, when Genos is introducing Dr. Kuseno to Saitama, and he says, "This is Dr. Kuseno. He rescued me when I was buried in rubble after the mad cyborg destroyed my town. He's a scientist of justice who has given me the power to fight." So yeah, that's pretty much it. And that really wouldn't be too big of a deal if it wasn't for the fact that this guy has some of the most powerful technology in existence. He's not just some hobbyist. He's on par with Metal Knight in terms of technological power. So it's not just like some random guy. He's somebody significant. So it's like, who is he? Why was he tracking the mad cyborg? Is it because he created the mad cyborg? But maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was Dr. Kuseno who invented the mad cyborg. Why did he get Genos as a kid or a teen or whatever, modify him, make him into this cyborg, give him this grand purpose of tracking down the mad cyborg, and then ultimately fake his own death? Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just some kind of grand experiment to where he needs to go through all of this to create the ultimate cyborg. Like he needs it to have this like crazy will and drive that's connected to like the human soul, and then I don't know, maybe it like synergizes with the technology and pushes it in a way that AI wouldn't be able to. Because that's another thing that is discussed between Child Emperor and Metal Knight in chapter 155 of the webcomic. Metal Knight says that both you and I misjudge the true value of the human brain. The capabilities of an AI that converges on uniform answers through collective learning and of the human brain are different in quality. Every individual's brain that has accumulated effort and experience exhibits a unique creative power. It is the human brain that holds infinite potential. That's the conclusion I reached. That completed AI may have become something extremely close to a human, but he has a different ceiling than humans. He'll surely suffer. So maybe that, I don't know, in a way it kind of explains what's going on with Dr. Kuseno. Maybe he created Drive Knight, implemented this AI into him, but then realized that he could only get to this like ceiling and that he's suffering because of it. So then he found Genos, you know, a fresh human kid, and then decided to go a different route with him. And didn't cyberize his brain or anything and implement it with the AI, but decided to go like the human brain soul route. And that way he could bring out this infinite potential, quote unquote. Because also another really interesting thing between Genos and Drive Knight is that they have extremely similar looking cores. And Dr. Kuseno obviously invented Genos's core. I mean, it's essentially proprietary technology unless stated otherwise, unless it came from Metal Knight, you know, originally. But anyway, I don't think it's a coincidence. They're both coming from the same place, either from Metal Knight or Dr. Kuseno. But first, guys, let me tell you about NMN supplements, or nicotinamide mononucleotide. Say that 3 times fast. It's from Black Forest. It's a supplement that's known to dramatically improve health and longevity by serving as a precursor to NAD+. And Dr. Andrew Huberman, whose podcast I love, he's a neuroscientist and a tenured professor at Stanford University of Medicine. He was on Joe Rogan and he actually explained what NMN is and how they're trying to take it away from us and patent it as a prescription drug because of its effectiveness.
I think last time we spoke about supplementation as it relates to, you know, metabolic pathways. And one thing I've been tracking pretty closely is this whole, you know, the NMN thing has now taken a different direction.
Before we wrap this up. So let's explain NMN for people. It's a precursor for NAD+.
Right. NAD is critical to energy production in all cells, vital. And levels of NAD tend to go down as we age. It's an absolute requirement for cellular health in life. You need it. Some years ago, as David Sinclair came on this podcast and discussed that his laboratory is a tenured professor of genetics, Harvard Medical School, and other laboratories are starting to explore stimulating the NAD pathway as a tool for extending lifespan. You can't just take NAD, or you can, but it doesn't get into cells very easily. There are basically 2 ways that you can tickle this pathway, increase NAD. One is to take NMN. NMN could soon be a prescription drug that you can only get with a prescription. And then I think Metro International Biotech will likely hold the patent. I will say with NMN, a couple of things happen. First of all, energy, my recovery from workouts much better. I had to take it early day because it was giving me a lot of energy. I did notice like my hair and nails growing at a ridiculous rate. And then I came off it just as a control experiment, slowed down again. So it was really interesting. I think there's something there in cellular growth pathways.
Interesting.
Now, of course, that clip was slightly sped up to get us through. Like he was saying, you get improved muscle growth, better recovery, and your hair and nails grow faster because of the cellular regeneration and healing. And it helps you recover from post-workouts. And it's definitely a part of maintaining a healthy lifestyle. So get it while you can before they try to patent it and make it a prescription drug, because it'll be like, you know, 5 times more at that point. So here's an exclusive offer. If you go to my link in the description or pinned down in the comment below, for the next 48 hours, if you buy 2, you get 1 free. So stock up while you can. It's blackforestsupplements.com/zonin. Thanks, guys. And another really interesting thing about this is stated by Reddit user Go Fancy Ninja World. And it's that while they do look similar, they're both very different in their function. And that's because Drive Knight's core is a battery and Genos's core is like a highly efficient fusion reactor. And I don't think that's a coincidence at all, especially how they link up together in the Monster Association arc. Also, let me just point out that Dr. Kuseno's name translates to Dr. Stench, and I always thought that was really interesting as well. Like, I found that out a couple years ago, and now it's kind of like coming around again. Like the stock is raising on that, the price is going up. But anyway, like I said, that was all like this big grand plan to bring out the greatest potential of Genos. You know, building up this grandfather-like figure to him with this tragic backstory, and then ultimately having himself killed and Genos just going berserk, because that's obviously what happened. Genos is like in a berserk rage right now and is about to kill Metal Knight at the end of chapter 155. If he hasn't already killed him, he stabbed through him. So who is Dr. Kuseno in relation to Metal Knight? I don't know. Is it like his brother? Is it his colleague? We'll see. I'm sure he's related to him in some way, if he is. And then Drive Knight's in there too. If Drive Knight isn't Metal Knight's son, then maybe he could be Dr. Kuseno's son. Also in chapter 140, Genos explains to Dr. Kuseno what Drive Knight told him about Metal Knight and how he wanted to like raid his base essentially. And Dr. Kuseno was just like, on board with it. He didn't protest it at all. He was just like, yeah, you know, you should do that, but you know, you got to be smart about it and all this stuff. But I just thought that was interesting how he didn't really ask too many questions. I mean, I get it, but they're also both S-class heroes. So it's like you should question both of them and, you know, where Drive Knight's coming from. But he didn't. He was just like, yeah, you know, he's probably a bad guy. You should probably go kill him. But, you know, you should be prepared first. And then let's go into the last bit of this video, and it's Dr. Kuseno collecting Saitama's data. Something we've talked about many times over these last couple of years. And I think this definitely gives more credence to Dr. Kuseno being evil, faking his death, because this Saitama data has to go somewhere. And I've talked about that. About how like this is such a big deal and it seemingly went nowhere at this point, and that just doesn't make sense. Why would one orchestrate this big scenario where Dr. Kuseno straight up asks Saitama to record his data, like trying to understand why he's so powerful? Like, why would Dr. Kuseno need this? To make Genos more powerful? That totally makes sense, but it seems like there's more of a nefarious motive to this, because Saitama, like, I don't know, kind of doesn't want to do it at first because it might take a long time. Then Dr. Kuseno straight up bribes him with meat, one of Saitama's favorite things. Something he doesn't buy on his own. It's always gifted to him, which is, you know, maybe going into the Ra lore, but I won't bore you guys with that Egyptian mythology stuff. But yeah, Dr. Kuseno's pretty hyped up on getting Saitama's data, and he does record it, and he falls asleep in the machine until suddenly at night, the machine gods show up, and, you know, they kill Dr. Kuseno and blow up the lab. And that raises the question of like, did all of Saitama's data get recorded? Because if it didn't, why would he interrupt the data being recorded at this moment in time? And I don't know, maybe that throws a whole wrench into this Dr. Kuseno being evil theory, but maybe he did get enough data. And either way, I said that this data has to go somewhere. Whether it is Dr. Kuseno actually successfully recorded it and he's going to use it to make like a new crazy AI robot, or he's going to put it in the Genos, or he already put it in the Genos and that's why he's so powerful right now. Or on the other side of the coin, you know, like I've always been saying, if Dr. Kuseno is not evil and we're just going back to the standard timeline here, then the organization / Drive Knight will use this data in some way. But yeah, let me know what you think about this in the comments, guys. Is Dr. Kuseno evil? Did he fake his death? Has he been stealing Metal Knight's data? Is he responsible for creating Drive Knight? Let me know. And if you liked the video, guys, please give it a like and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.